Welcome everyone. Today we will learn how to implement CRUD operations in Angular using a minimal API with .NET and Entity Framework Core. So the first step is to create an AS.NET Core Entity application. Select .NET8. So add a NuGet package to connect with a database. In this case, we will use EFC-InMemory from Entity Framework Core to simulate a connection with a database. So install the package. The next step is to create a product class to represent the product table and add the context class. So add a new class called product with a primary key, a name, and a price. Add a new class called shop context. Add the DB context configuration and a property, which is a DB set of type product. The next step is to override the onModel creating method to seed data or to add two products initially. So override the onModel creating method and call model builder that entity product that has data and define two products, set property values and add a second product. The next step is to configure the program.cs file, but register the DB context and then implement the minimal API. So go to the program.cs file, register the context and call options that use in-memory database by defining the database name. Let's implement the HTTP methods from our minimal API. So we have a get method. So let's return the list of products in this method by injecting the shop context through method injection. Initially call db.database.ensure created to ensure that the database is created and then set the data with the two products defined and then return db.products to list. Define a second get HTTP method to return product based on the ID. So receive the ID as a query parameter and then call db.product.find, passing the ID. Define the second CRUD operation, which is create. So let me copy this code and call map_post, which we will receive the product from body, and then we will call database.product.add, passing the body, then save the changes, and finally return the body.id, the new ID of the product at the third CRUD operation to update a product. So we'll receive the product and then we'll search for the current product in the database based on the ID. If product is null, let's return a not found status code. Otherwise, we will modify the properties from the product, the name and the price, and then save the changes and return a no content status code. Let's create the last HTTP CRUD operation to delete a product based on the ID. So we'll find the product. If not found, return a not found status code. Otherwise, call db.remove and save the changes. Return a no content status code. So finally, we will configure COS to perform requests from an Angular application. So for demo purposes, we will allow any origin. So call builder.services.add_CORS by defining a default policy to allow any origin, any header, and any method, and add the CORS into the pipeline. That's it. Let's run the API. We have our two products already created in the onModel creating method. So now it's time to go to Visual Studio Code and create our Angular application. So open a new terminal and type ngn, define the name of the Angular application. Let's skip test, inline styles, and select the defaults just for simplicity. Open the containing folder, open a new terminal, and create a new file, our generic service. So navigate to the app folder and then type ngg to generate a new file. In this case will be a service, the name generic. Open the file. This will be a generic service. So add a parameter of type T. Let's add a property pointing to the minimal API URL. So let me copy the value. Now inject the HTTP client to perform HTTP request. So let's define the CRUD methods in this generic service. So the first one will get we will return http.get passing the URL. We'll return a model, a product model, an array, it's called URL. Let's define this product interface or class in the Angular application. So type ngg interface with the product name, define the same fields, the ID, the name, the price. Let's import the product, add a new method to get a product based on the ID. We'll return observable product and then use interpolation to concatenate the URL with the ID. The next method will be to create a new product, so called a post method that will return the ID, passing the URL and the body. Now it's time to implement the update method, which is a put operation that will return nothing and passing the body. And finally, let me copy this value. Let's define the delete operation by passing the ID and calling delete. It will return void. We'll pass the ID as a query parameter. So that's it. Now go to the TypeScript file and import the HTTP client module. From the providers array, we will register the generic service and add a new field, which will be an observable to list the products. In the constructor, we will inject service of type product and then add a method to list the products. So add a method, we will set these products observable based on service.get. And in the onInit method, when the component is created, we will list the products. So implement ng onInit and then call the list method. In the HTML, let's remove the sample code, add a simple h-tag products and add a list. Use the new for syntax to list the products based on the observable. So use the async pipe to iterate over the emitted items and then add an item element to print the name and the price and add a currency pipe to format the price value. Let's run the Angular application to see the list of products. So run ngs, go to localhost. As you can see, we have the products from the minimal API. Now let's add the CRUD operations in the Angular application. So let me add a simple form to create a new product, to update or to delete, and also to return a product based on ID. So add 3 inputs for the 3 fields, ID, name, and price. So the first one will be type number with an ID. Add a label, add a break line for each line. Then we copy this code to define the remaining properties. In this case will be for name, the type will be text, the ID name, and finally the price field. Let's add an ngModel directive to bind the input value to a property defined in the TypeScript file. So call ngModel directive by binding to an ID property. Let me copy the same attribute with the remaining inputs for the name and for the price. Go to the TypeScript file and define 3 properties, ID, name, and price. We need to import the fonts module to use the ngModel directive. So we have a simple form. Let's add 4 buttons to create, to update, to delete, and to get a product based on the ID. So add a button. Let's add a background color to differentiate the buttons. The first one will be to create a new product by defining a method in the TypeScript file. Similarly, for the 3 remaining buttons, second one will be to update, so add a different color, call the update method. Next button will be to delete, add a red color, and finally get a product by ID. Define the 4 methods in the TypeScript file. So for the add method, we will call service.create by passing the product. The ID will be 0, the name based on the name property, and the price. And let's subscribe to refresh the list by calling the list method. Define the update method by calling the update method from the generated service. In this case, we will pass the ID, and then similarly, we will refresh the list, add the third CRUD operation to delete, so pass the ID, and finally define the get by ID method to list a product based on the ID. So in this case, it will be a little different because in the subscribe method, we will receive the product. So basically, we will update the price and the name fields, and that's it. So it's time to test the application. Let's add a new product by defining the name and a price. Click add. As you can see, a new product is added in the API. You can refresh the API and we have the new product. Let's update the product with ID 2. Let's call it red jacket and change the price. Click update. The product with ID 2 is updated. Let's remove the first product by passing the ID. Delete. And finally get a product by the ID. So type 3 and click get by ID. You can see the name and the price input values are updated. So in this demo, we've learned how to implement CRUD operations in Angular using a minimal API with .NET and Entity Framework code.